Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate the invite from you and the whole Scarbrough team. As Kevin mentioned, we've actually been conducting a survey over the last month. It's actually a month ago today that we started collecting responses about how the container shipping industry was being affected and their perspective on the SOLAS VGM amendment. So we asked a pretty broad range of questions, but I thought I'd drill into some of the things that I thought were most interesting today. And you know, during the Q&A, I'll probably highlight some of the things that I didn't even mention on this slide. And if anyone has any questions about our research after the session today, I'm happy to follow up with them because I may be able to provide more information than we can even get to today. But just start off with what I think is kind of the most well, depending on what position you're in, one of the most alarming numbers that came out of the survey was that about just under 2/3 of the people we surveyed said they don't understand how to comply with the amendment. And given the fact that we're now inside in the home stretch, I think less than 4 months now, that should be alarming to everybody, not just people who have to comply with the regulation, but the people who actually wrote the regulation and implemented or disseminated it. As well as the countries that agreed to it. So, I mean, I think this is clearly not the way that everyone anticipated it being 3-4 months out. And just to give some background on kind of who the survey went out to, it was, we have about 500 people, and about 45% were shippers, about a third were 3PLs, and that includes forwarders, brokers, and NVOs. And 13% were carriers, and 9% classified themselves as other, so meaning generally consultants. The next sort of set of bullets is really also interesting because that gets at one of the critical points, and critical kind of points where there's not a whole lot of clarity right now, and that's just exactly how shippers and forwarders and NVOs are going to have to weigh their cargo. What constitutes a proper verified weight? Or I should say, what's the method for getting to that verified weight? So 40% of the people, and this is the whole group, this is not broken up into any specific sections, and again, I can probably talk to that later on, but 40% of the group thinks that the calculation method, and I know Patrick's going to go into some of the specifics of this, but 40% of the calculation will be used, calculation method. 20% thinks they're going to be weighted at container terminals. Another 17% thinks they're going to be weighed at third-party weigh stations that have, you know, currently nothing to do with the normal container supply chain. 15% believe that that'll be handled by forwarders and 3PLs on either their facilities or other third-party facilities. And then the other 8% thinks that some other method will be used. So I think this kind of, again, just sort of speaks to the lack of standards or clarity on this issue and how confused everyone is about how this is all going to roll, kind of unravel is probably bad word use. This is also a critical thing when you think about the next bullet. When you think about the fact that most shippers and certainly most forwarders have business into, you know, they're importing and exporting. They're you know, dealing with multiple countries, if not dozens of countries within their supply chains. And close to 2/3, you know, don't believe that this regulation is going to be uniform across all those countries. And frankly, I was surprised that it was this low. I think, given the fact that each country can kind of implement this as they see fit, I'm surprised that more respondents didn't see it as being a problem that this is going to be, you know, not implemented uniformly. And then, you know, kind of the big ticket number at the bottom is 3/4 of respondents believe that some or all of their containers, well, not all, but, you know, some of their containers are going to be held on July 1st when the regulation goes into effect. So that's, again, clearly something that looks like a big problem if we don't do something over the next 3 to 4 months. So, yeah, those are kind of the high points. And again, I'll bring up some other points, I think, later during the Q&A, depending on some of the questions we get. But very interesting stuff from our perspective.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. That's a good info. And again, Eric is going to be answering some of the questions. We're going to try to get through some of the content real quick and then dive right into the questions because we do have a time. And I can tell you that I attended the Trans-Pacific Maritime Conference last week where this topic was being discussed with carriers, terminals, and it's still all over the place. So what we're going to review today is really what the rule states but I can almost promise you that there's going to be more information before July 1st that comes out on how each of the steamship lines are wanting to handle this from a business to business transaction with us, their consumers, and you, their consumers, because this does affect Scarbrough too as an MBO.